Oh, wow, I really love your outfit. It looks so comfortable.
A little toasty.
Well, let's start out with, you have an amazing cast in this film. How do you go about managing a cast of that size, especially with their schedules and everything else?
Well, with the schedules, you just got to figure out how much, you just have to, it's a puzzle. I don't really remember anybody who we were really up against it with, like they're only giving us this amount of time and that sort of thing. So it worked out fine. I mean, mostly people who are going to come, who are well known and have agreed to do a littler part, they just want to know you're trying to make it, you're looking after them and trying to get them done in as reasonable time frame as you can and so on. But it's, with this kind of group, it's not really a big thing of managing them. They're all people where you bring them together and say, please do what you do. They're so authoritative, and they all have so much of their own processes that, we do all kinds of preparation, get everything set, and then they come in, and then it sort of becomes a little chaotic. We work very, very quickly, and they just sort of take over.
I love the world that all of your films, but especially in this, it's kind of a culmination. The worlds that you create. How did you go about collaborating together to create such a rich, lush world?
It starts with research and with location scouting, and things are pulled from the real world, from places that we see, even places we don't end up shooting. But there's always tons of details and amazing things that you see just traveling around and looking at stuff, and so that's kind of half of it. And then I think that in this case, historical research of hotels and of travel and of all these different things, and then you kind of take that and then Wes thumbnails through the key sequences to begin, and then more and more and more of the piece as we go, and then you kind of lay that all out on a gigantic table and start breaking apart what's a set, what's a location, what's a miniature build, what's a painting, what's whatever, and work through step by step by step.
Yeah, and he does a thing where he just gets millions of images, and we start looking. We look through them together, and I say, I like this, I like this, I like this, and he's kind of gathering and shaping those, and then each day, even in the earliest of the phases of kind of prepping everything, he'll usually come to me at some point during the day and say, okay, can we do 45 minutes at 3 o'clock? We sit down and he says, okay, I've got this stuff. He's got things in different stages of preparation and different options of ways we can go and that sort of stuff. And it goes like that over and over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, and it keeps going because the process of shooting, there's new stuff coming every day, and you can't possibly design all of it at one time at the beginning. So it's really a rolling process. So we'll work all day shooting something, and then it's like, great, but before we relax, we have to talk about what shoots next Wednesday.
Yeah.
Because we just have brand new sketches for that. And that process goes and goes and goes.
Yeah.
Was there anything that you brought to Adam that said, like, let's do this, and Adam said, no, I can't make that happen, or that Adam brought to you, where you're like, yeah, that's not quite my vision?
No, because he didn't really do that. I mean, what he'll say is, I won't say, do this impossible thing. I might say, do this almost impossible thing. But his response to do this almost impossible thing is, okay, let's look at it and figure it out. But essentially, he's going to say, we'll do it. We're going to make it work somehow. But sometimes that means he'll say to me, okay, I know that here's what we're going to do, and here's how we do it. If we do it on this day, we can do this. If we can shuffle something around and I can do it 2 days later, we'll get the thing from such and such, and we'll be able to do that, and we'll make a choice that way. And often it means we find some other approach, because of something that's going to cost this, and we think that's not really so valuable to us. It's so anyway, it's always changing, it's always evolving. And this thing you were saying about traveling around and discovering things, scouting, that's a huge part of the thing is we just gather all this stuff
Yeah.
and we want to sort of share it.
Yeah, yeah. Because the real items just have their own stories. That
Yeah.
it's so nice to have the real thing, not sort of the cardboard version of it that we faked the real thing, but the actual thing.
The actual real thing, and we'll see these things and say, now why do we keep seeing this in this part of the world? We keep seeing this happen, and people say, well, this is that's what these things over the doors mean this, and there's just like history in all this stuff.
Can you talk a little bit about how this project first came together and what inspired this particular story?
Well, first it was just this character played by Rafe. And it wasn't a hotel concierge. It was just a guy, which is inspired a bit by an old friend of mine and my friend Hugo's who wrote it with me. So we had written a little kind of short story version of a script inspired by our friend, but we didn't really know what to do with it or where it would go, and it didn't really quite take off. And it was short. And then, over the years, I started thinking that I would like to do something related to Stefan Zweig's work. I started reading this writer who I'd never heard of, and I just had this idea of doing something like his work. And then I sort of combined them, and in the process of that, had this idea of him being a hotel concierge, because we've always said our friend would be the greatest concierge, and he said, "Oh, it'd be wonderful. I would be absolutely the very best hotel concierge." So we sort of put that all together, and then we made this, and then we made the script very quickly. After that, we just needed the ingredients.
What was the thing from Stefan Zweig that you wanted to take on screen? What was it the storytelling?
It wasn't.
Storytelling?
Yeah, it wasn't one thing in the end. If it was the first one I read was Beware of Pity.
Okay.
And I immediately just love the way we get into the story in that, and something he does over and over again in his fiction. So you've read Zweig, right? In America we didn't really know Zweig. Until a few years ago, he was just out of print except for some of the biographies, maybe. But I loved the way he began that story. I loved his sort of voice, and that book was just a favorite of mine. Mm-hmm. Then I read more of the fiction. I kept seeing this device of somebody meets somebody else in some settings. Sometimes they're away from where they live, and they meet some mysterious person, and eventually, and some things happen, and then eventually that person says, well, I could tell you my story if you want to hear it, and that's the thing. That's the novel. That's the story. But also, I read The World of Yesterday, his memoir, which is a kind of portrait. The most memorable thing to me, perhaps, in it is his description of the Vienna before 1914, and the Europe before 1914, and what it meant to him, and what he thought he was participating in, and how suddenly and radically it changed, and was just sort of obliterated over the continuing years. First nationalism, and then these movements of fascism and socialism, and how they played out in front of him. His account of that just became a kind of backdrop to me for what our story could be, even though our story really has nothing to do with it's the actual story in our movie is not really related to any Zweig story, but it's that stuff.
Jeff talked about you making other films and books available to them while they were on set. I mean, as vibrant as your script is, and the set designs, and this world that you create is, what do you hope that they take from those other sources?
Nothing in particular. I think it's just everybody's there together, and I've got all this stuff that I've been looking at. So they're now they want to know what can you tell me? They want to just work on their thing, and they've all got their own process. So I think it's just for fun, and then maybe they'll use it one way or another. I don't know what they do, but it's just kind of, here's the stuff that relates to the movie that we've got, if you're interested, and it's literally sitting on a table there, and people come by and take a movie, and sometimes maybe they'll just like that movie, when you finish work, practically everybody in the place is going to watch a movie that night anyway. They're tired, they have dinner, they go up to their room, they're watching TV. So.
Do you remember what specifically you left for them? Jeff mentioned some movie titles.
Yeah, we had one called Love Me Tonight. That's a Ruben Mamoulian. We had lots of Lubitsch movies: Shop Around the Corner, Trouble in Paradise, To Be or Not to Be, Designed for Living. All the Lubitsch musicals. We had lots of 30s Hitchcock movies. The Lady Vanishes and 39 Steps, but also like Sabotage and what other ones? Young and Innocent. The Max Ophuls movies, Earrings of Madame de, and La Ronde. Maybe we had there. We had a Bergman, The Silence, because it's in a hotel in a kind of made-up Eastern European country, and they're on a train and all that sort of stuff. In fact, we made their hotel corridors. So
yes.
The corridors of our hotel are just, his are in black and white, so we had to guess. Some of it, but they're
very similar. All the door details and stuff are taken from.
We just took them from his movie. Yeah.
I have a question about how you kind of bring people how you bring your audiences into your films. Where like Royal Tenenbaums, you have someone narrating, Alec Baldwin narrating a book. You have Rushmore even has you kind of opening the curtains and then stepping in. In this film, you have kind of multiple layers. You have a girl with the book, and then that goes to the author, Tom Wilkinson, reading the book, and going on to F. Murray Abraham, who's narrating his own story. Was there anything to bring the different layers that you have in this approaching them?
Well, I've seen it in. There's one story by. Did you ever read this Roald Dahl wonderful story of Henry Sugar? Do you know that one?
I haven't read that one.
It's one of the children's books, and but kind of for older children, I guess. Do you know that one, Henry Sugar? And that one has a very similar thing: a layer, another layer, another layer. There's a guy who's in a house and he finds a book and he opens the book, and in the book a guy describes something that happened to him, and he meets somebody who then tells him a story. So it really does have all those layers like that. And Zweig does this all through his work, and I think there's something about it that there's a mystery about it, and there's a sort of feeling of setting a stage and giving some meaning and context sort of before you get into things happening one thing after another. And also somehow I feel like, without me deliberately wanting to say one thing or another about it, it's something about just storytelling as some kind of thematic, whatever it is in there.
That's kind of touching on that and playing off of that. I think that's so clever that it's this meta comment on storytelling and playing around with storytelling device. A lot of people talk about save the cat moments in films, but you have a kill the cat moment. But I think that's
save the cat's like a way to make you like
a character. But then in here, it's like you have it where you're already not liking the character, but you really don't like the character. There's a visceral reaction to it.
Is that right? When people kill a cat like that?
Yeah.
I was saying, in Berlin, I feel like. They said, why do you kill animals in these movies? Well, we don't kill animals. These are actors.
Right.
And, we feel like, what actor doesn't want a death scene anyway? If I was a cat, I would say, I would love it. I would love it if you kill me in this one. I have a great way I'm going to do this. Yeah. So I feel like it's, I think I'm doing a favor to these animals.
Right.
Everybody talked about on the set you had this great communal atmosphere, and is that something that was that particular to this film, or is that like in all of your films where you bring the cast members together and you all eat together and you have then this great atmosphere, and does that does that aid the shooting process for you? Do you feel like you get more from the talent?
I don't know, but it's definitely. This one more than any of the other ones, we were all together, and Adam and Bob Yeoman, our director of photography, and Milena, our costume designer, and the whole cast. We were all together in one in one little hotel that we took over, and we had a cook that we brought in, and it was a very kind of comfortable, modest, but just terrific little hotel. And in fact, the guy who owned the hotel and his wife, we cast them both in the movie, but we cast him as one of the people in the front of house, at the front desk of the hotel, and he was in a purple thing and everything. And so we would leave work, and then we'd go back to the hotel, and then he would already be there in his regular clothes. I don't know how he always got there ahead of us, but we'd leave him at one hotel, and he'd be waiting at the other hotel. But I just think it's just more fun to have everybody together, and also, well, I don't really like. I've had this thing happen where everybody has trailers, and like 9 different people are leaving, and they go watch ESPN or something like that, and we need them back on the set, and then one of them says, "Well, has so and so come back on the set? Well, let me know when he's on his way, and then I'll come." And you're just wasting time, and it's just. And I feel like everybody can go home when we're finished with the whole movie, but until then, it's nice if everybody just stays together and kind of stays in it. And I think most actors like that. Most actors want to kind of put themselves, just commit themselves to it, because it's not the kind of work. It's not a day job for most of these people. They would do it for nothing, and and in fact they have to if they work with us.
Do you have a favorite set or location that you worked on for this film, or any of them?
There were a ton of really, really fun ones for this. I mean, the hotel was sort of as obvious, and it was a lot of fun. But there were some little ones that were a lot of fun. I mean, one of my favorite stories from this one is this scene where they're on the telephone in a telephone booth in the middle of a snow-covered field, and we had these mobile haystacks that you could get inside and march around. and I one of my favorite days of shooting it was the day we were marching the haystacks around the field, trying to line them up just right. That was fun.
Because we were talking to them on walkie-talkie, and there are like 7 guys inside the haystack, and we're saying go to the right, and the haystack just moved. Yeah.
Were there any particular challenges to playing with the different aspect ratios?
No, I mean, I've said, like I just said before, in our conversation before, the only real challenge was from lawyers who just don't know. Aspect ratio, for whatever reason, is like a thing that goes into contracts. You're required to deliver a movie between 90 minutes and 120, whatever it is, in the 1.85 or 2.35 ratio. And so then the lawyers see this thing, we're going to do it in a bunch of different things here. So they're like, wait, what is this? And they think it's a problem. But there's nothing. I mean, for us, we just did. After we paid these fees for it to be argued over for a certain period of time, we then kind of just did it, and it was it's simple enough to accomplish. I mean, this sort of square ratio that most of the movie is in. Every movie is shot that way, essentially. I mean, every movie except for a super widescreen movie is shot this way and then cropped. That the negative is this. It's just using the whole negative, and that's the way movies were. All movies were like that up until like 1954, I think. And the other formats we're using are just normal formats. So we just shot them each like a different movie, and then it all gets put together. All the prints, it's almost everything is done digitally now. So it's very simple for us to decide how we want to present it, and it was a very smooth process.
Last question.
What are you working on next?
Well, I just can't say. I have this thing I've been working on, but it's so early, and I just feel like it's. I wouldn't. If I stand, because I've just been working on it. I'm kind of inclined to say, but then I'm like, I shouldn't have said anything about that. It doesn't sound good the way I described it. I could have described it better. I don't want to. I don't want to put the bad version out there before I've had a chance to make a better one. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.